We will call on you for you to answer with your mic on, or ask your question with your mic on. Please don't be shy with turning on your camera. It'd be a really sweet thing if you guys will.
Okay, camera on, please.
I think we have most of the students at this time, so I guess we're good to start. Louis and Victor, let's get started with the show.
Okay. Today we have a panel of engineers. If they'd like to introduce themselves, tell us what their jobs are, and where they're currently working, in a simple explanation of what their job is all about.
Okay, well, I'll kick this off, I guess. My name is Derek Dowling. I am a registered mechanical engineer in the state of California, actually in a couple other states too. I basically, my job in a nutshell is I make plans for contractors. So I guide contractors on how to build things. I ensure things are built to code and are safe. And I also solve problems when they come up. There's lots of problems that come up during construction, and I help push that project to completion. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Thank you, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Paul?
Yeah, hi. I'm Paul Glendenning, and I'm a GIS analyst. I work with Stantec Consulting, based in the Walnut Creek office, though I haven't seen all my people in about 8 months. And I work for our environmental services division. We work in conjunction with engineers when there's a construction project, or for example, we do a lot of work with PG&E. So what I do is I gather a lot of geographic data, spatial data, on lots of variables on a project site. And I work with biologists and archaeologists and engineers to assess what kind of impacts a project might have on a location, to help get them through the permitting process in order to get their project approved for construction. It's more or less in a nutshell what I do.
Thank you, Paul. Elizabeth?
Hi there, I'm Elizabeth, and I work at PG&E, so I might be someone that works with Paul from time to time. And I'm a GIS analyst as well, and I work with a large team at PG&E, and the most interesting part of what I do is making maps. And the most emotional thing that I do at work is make maps during wildfires. So we look at the impacts of a fire in the perimeter and what might be affected by that wildfire, or what direction the wildfire is going, and make predictions of where damage might occur. So that's the exciting part of my job.
Thank you very much for that. And finally, Ken?
Hi, I'm Ken Forward. I also work at PG&E. I'm formerly part of the Wildfire Safety Program team, and I manage the team that use technology, leveraging GIS to review and assess our assets during wildfires and after PSPSs, to catalog our attributes and determine if it's safe to restore power.
Okay, now that we know who our engineers are, let's learn a little bit about how they got there. Derek, would you like to share your journey from high school to your current position, starting with what kind of student were you in high school?
You're unmuted. You're on mute, by the way, Derek.
Always. I never never fails. Yeah, so I wasn't the best student in high school. I struggled, you know, I barely made it. I went to night schools to make it up. I do better when I'm challenged. I feel I wasn't very challenged. So it wasn't until college. I went to school in California State College in Chico. And it wasn't until then I started to do well, but I did really well in college. Really, that's where I started to become interested in mechanical engineering and mechanics. And in fact, I was, interested in civil engineering as well, which is less mechanical and more roads and bridges and just um, static buildings, things that don't move. So while I was through school, I was interning for a surveying company and a civil engineering firm who had contracts to do GIS. I think everybody's familiar with GIS, right? I think everybody's worked on it a little bit. And what I did is our company was contracted through the town of Paradise that was unfortunately lost in the fire, or the big majority of it was lost in the fire. And we would do parcel splits. So we would go out and somebody would have a big piece of property and they wanted to subdivide it into separate pieces of property. And all this information is kept in GIS. And so what I would do is adjust property boundaries. We'd also put in monuments. So I guess they're called points. It's been a long time since I've worked in GIS. So please excuse me, you guys probably know much more than I do about it at this point. And I basically just, edited maps and, that's what I did as an intern. And then now, current day, I work for a company called Eichly, and we put together construction plans. So I mainly work on mechanical systems, heating, cooling, piping, pumps, anything that keeps a building running is what I work on. Air compressors, vacuum pumps, for lab buildings. I've worked on hospitals. I've worked on data centers. I put in emergency generators. I do all sorts of stuff. It's really interesting. And on my day-to-day job, I'm in CAD all day long, AutoCAD. This is where you put ideas on paper and you start to graphically represent ideas from your head and you put it on paper and you have discussions, you solve problems. And I put out a plan set and the contractor starts to build from that. I ensure compliance, I ensure systems are safe and people are safe. That's probably my number one responsibility is keeping people safe. People get hurt with these things. So, and then I see the project through completion. So I actually get to see the things that I build, which is very interesting. I absolutely love my job. I wouldn't want any other job in this world. So, did I miss anything? My journey, introduce. Does anybody have any questions? Or I know there's a lot of people on here. I want to keep my time short. I know we're probably crunched on time here. I don't want to talk too much. I can talk all day.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So could Paul tell us a little bit about how he was in high school?
Sure. Well, I too was not a great student in high school. I goofed around a lot. Took till senior year where I realized, I better buckle down and try to get out of here, which I managed to do. And honestly, I didn't have a lot of direction at that age. I didn't know where I wanted to go, what to do. After high school, I attended community college part-time for about 3 years, and then I transferred to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, as an engineering student. Turned out that I wasn't, after about a year of classes in engineering, it turned out I wasn't that interested in it. Eventually, I got my degree in geography, and that's what pointed me in the direction of GIS. It was kind of a lucky chance that I stumbled upon GIS at that time. That was about 25 years ago. It wasn't as common as it is now. So that's how I, So I was in high school, like I said, not that great, but I managed, to work it out, which is not all that uncommon. People, it's hard to have direction when you're, 16, 17 years old to figure out what you want to do with your entire life. Sometimes you got to, experiment a little bit and expose yourself to different things, which is what I ended up doing. Anyway, I've been in GIS now for about 25 years, and I've done it for a variety of different industries. Right now, I'm in environmental services for an engineering and architecture firm. Previously, I did GIS for vineyard management, like people growing wine grapes. They need to manage their properties and all the assets on the properties. I also worked for Wells Fargo Bank way back, did market analysis, taking all kinds of data and mapping it. And maps are a huge part of my job, obviously with GIS. That's how we communicate. So anyway, I'm going a little bit beyond the high school scope, but yeah, that's pretty much how I got to where I am. It's a very long story. I can make it really long if you want, but I'm not going to do that.
Thank you, Paul. I think a lot of people could relate to that, not being such a organized person nowadays. But yeah, could Elizabeth tell us a little bit about herself in high school?
Sure. Can you hear me? Yes,
Yeah.
you can hear me. So I want to talk to all the good students out there. I was a great high school student. I was very motivated and studious, and maybe overly so. But I worked hard in high school and was a very not gravitating towards math or science at all. I was a very sort of bookish person. I like to read all the time. I was an avid reader. And so I went to college and majored in English, right? And with an English major, there's even memes and jokes out there like, what do you do as an English major? Nothing, right? So it was sort of a path that I took because I loved I loved books and reading, and not with any career ideas in mind at all, and much to the dismay of everyone around me, but ended up working in the environmental field. So I got lots of office jobs in Los Angeles. I went to UCLA and ended up living there a little bit and worked for environmental programs and doing office work. And while I was there, sort of supporting conservation and nature programs, I thought, wow, I love these maps that are coming in. So I would be sort of just in an administrative role at these jobs, and then we would work with the GIS people, and they would do some kind of analysis to say, oh, here's the areas that we should protect. And I thought, oh, that's perfect for me because I love visual design, I love graphics, and I want to make the world a better place. But I'm not going to go to Sacramento and be a policy person. I'm not going to be a politician. I'm not going to be a writer. So I thought, oh, this graphic side of things in GIS is perfect for me. And I ended up, just like Paul, I went to San Francisco State in geography and I ended up doing a master's there. And it's possible Paul and I even overlapped a little bit
Your name is very familiar to me.
Yeah, we look familiar to each other.
Yeah,
So I think
I'm trying to place it.
We were in college together.
At SF State, because I was there in the geography program in
geography
the
school.
late 90s.
Yes.
So anyway.
Awesome. So we're cohorts. We're classmates here. We didn't even know it. So I love geography, loved the program, loved both making maps and then the human side of geography, and just have done nothing else since. I've just fell into GIS and map making. And remember how I said I wanted to make the world a better place? Well, PG&E came along and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I'm trying to make the world a better place from PG&E. From the inside, and I feel like it's a place where I can I can have a steady job, but also work with great people and do fun stuff. So that's how I ended up here. So anyone that loves reading and books, you can end up as an engineer too. Just a windy path.
Hey, Elizabeth. And lastly but not least, Ken, how was your journey from high school to your current position?
Sure. So I'll try and keep it a little briefer because I know we want more questions and things. So for me, I went to high school at Skyline High School in Oakland in the Bay Area. I was a pretty good student. I loved math and science and all that stuff, even when I was a little kid. So all those things always interested me. And I played sports and all that kind of thing. So it kind of led me on the journey of when I graduated high school, I went to University of Miami. And I had, similar to others on the panel, not necessarily the most traditional or straight through or direct path through college or even high school. So went to University of Miami. As most of you may know, it's a private institution. So my parents had to try and pay for a good portion of it, and we couldn't afford to pay for a second year. So I came back to the Bay Area, took some time at junior college, actually at Laney, and then went up to Washington State and ended up finishing after several kind of back and forths because I had to come home and help my family for a little while as well. So I put a little pause on my college career, and went back up to Washington State and finished at University of Idaho in Washington State. But in the time of going to college, I did a couple of internships, one with Toyota and one with PG&E at Diablo Canyon, actually two with PG&E. And when I graduated and started working at PG&E, I know I wanted to be close to the community. I loved project management. I grew up in a household of construction contractors and things like that. So working with people, seeing work at the end of the day and progress was really important to me and was a strong staple. So I started on our service planning side of the house, which is providing customers, residential and small commercial, gas and electric service. And that blossomed into project management and big projects where we use tools like Esri maps, GIS maps, and things of that nature, as well as AutoCAD for our engineers and our service planning estimators who create the pipes and wires that eventually we're going to install on maps, on CAD, and things of that nature. And my last couple of years with PG&E have been in the IT department, somewhere I never thought I'd be. And with the wildfire, with our digital catalyst team, which is a team that builds custom mobile applications in-house. And then I transitioned over to wildfire team, where we use maps, Esri mapping, GIS mapping, and things like that. And some of the inspection tools that we leverage to review our assets and map things. And I ran a team that provided one of those applications, one of those tools that we use that also used GIS mapping embedded in it. So for me, the visual, having a way to identify assets and attributes and combine how the system works with the visual representation of it was, something I've always been involved with from a kid doing construction work with my grandfather, through the work I did in service planning with PG&E, and even through the wildfire stuff. So that's my high school to college career to PG&E career journey in a nutshell.
Thank you, Ken. And on to another question for our intro. And I'd like to ask Paul this question. And Ken, share what you like most about being an engineer. What do you like the least about it? And also, do you think it's important to enjoy what you do for a living? If any of you guys can answer first.
Paul, you want to start or you want me to start?
Sure, I'll go. Okay. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So I'd like you guys to share what you like most about an engineer and some of the things that you really don't like about it. And
okay.
Yeah, do you also believe that it's important to enjoy what you do for a living?
Yeah. So what I like most about what I do is I work with a a wide variety of different people as far as what their professions are. I work with wildlife biologists, I work with archaeologists, I work with engineers, I work with water resources experts, all kinds of people who are involved in assessing and managing natural resources and human resources. For example, the archaeologists, they're out there doing studies, digging in the dirt, literally, and finding artifacts from, Native American artifacts or, old mining tales from, in the Sierra foothills from the gold mining years. So it's really interesting to be exposed to all those different disciplines in the course of my work. And I take in information from all these people, kind of assimilate it so that they can create their reports and do their analyses. That's what I like most about it. What I like least about it is constant juggling of schedules and project priorities. That's one of the biggest challenges of my job is priorities are constantly changing. One client or another is constantly demanding to be at the top of your list to get the work done. Actually, they all want to be at the top of the list all the time. So juggling all the priorities and demands is one of the most difficult parts, and it's one of the things that I like the least. But it's part of the job. You just have to do it. And then once you get through, especially challenging weeks or months, there's a pretty good sense of satisfaction. They're like, well, I did that. I think in general, it's important to like the work that you do. If it's a career, something that you're going to be doing for decades, it's important to like it. You don't have to love it all the time. I certainly don't. And I don't think most people love their work all the time, but kind of in the bigger picture, the broader picture over the long term, yeah, it's important to like it so you can stay focused and remain engaged because you need to be able to do that in order to do good work. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll answer in a similar fashion. I'll answer the last question first. So I think it's very important to enjoy what you do, but agreeing with Paul, they're on the journey of trying to find or build a career or even just get educated and inform yourself. There's going to be stuff you don't necessarily like. But my motto and something that served me well is if I'm always learning, then it's always valued and important time. So yeah, definitely it's always a bonus and a plus to really enjoy or even love what you do. But there's always going to be times with work. It is work and called work for a reason that you're not going to necessarily love it or whatnot. But most of the time of enjoyment, learning, growth, and all those things should outweigh, especially for a career. Sometimes you have to take jobs to get to a career, but once you're definitely in your career or doing career things, you should be enjoying it most of the time. The thing I like the most, I think Paul covered quite a bit of it. I love, especially with engineering, natural problem solvers. So solving problems is always of interest, but it's the opportunity to meet and engage with lots of different people who do stuff different than you or in different facets to come together for a common goal. And always the opportunity to learn something different. So like for me, I started out doing, electrical design engineering at a power plant. And I'm all the way now, I'm doing, change management for, social and general speaking up and changing culture. So that's, a far dynamic rise from of one to the other. The least thing I like about it, and everyone who's an engineer can probably appreciate this, is sometimes the technical nuance. It's like, sometimes you get so embedded in the technical pieces and speak that you don't have an opportunity, or you have to pull people back and realize that not everybody is that technically involved or sound to the little, minutest of detail. It doesn't always have to go that far. There's functional, there's high level of excellence, and then there's, kind of driving yourself crazy with a level of excellence that you want to try to avoid. So sometimes getting to that level of nuance that's not necessary to be functional and keep things moving, that's probably the piece I sometimes don't enjoy. But thanks for the question.
And thank you for the answer.
Yeah, I think that was some helpful insight on, about like just having a job in general, I guess. So next, I'd like to ask Elizabeth a little bit about GIS. Can you talk about a project when you use the geographic information system in your job?
Sure. There's a project I'll never forget. It was when I was first starting at PG&E. And like I said, I used to work for environmental organizations, so I felt like I was losing touch with the natural world and going into the utility world. But I got to support a conservation group for condors. So the California condors, which are endangered, and they live in the Central Valley of the sort of mountains in the Central Valley of California, and they're endangered. And there's this whole program to save them. So PG&E engaged with them and said, we can offer you some GIS support, as part of a cooperation in building habitat for the condors. And I thought, this is perfect. I'm at PG&E. I should be doing, towers and poles and gas pipelines, but I get to work with condor data. And so they gave me these spreadsheets. And if you look at GIS a little bit, part of it is turning latitude, longitude coordinates into points, right? So you've got just a table of lat longs. In the software, you say, turn that latitude, longitude into a point on a map. And it was as simple as that, but they didn't have GIS software. So when I lit up this spreadsheet of condor locations, what they were radio collars on the condor. So they had the condors had these GPSs on their neck, and they were flying around for a couple of years, a couple of seasons, and so they had all of these lat longs in a spreadsheet. They'd never seen it spatially, and I turned it into a map and showed it, and sure enough, you could see the tracks, you could see the flight paths and the winter sort of breeding areas for these condors, and we got to show that map to the conservationists, and they said, we had no idea they were going to this lake in the winter. We had no idea they were flying that far. And so to take something that was as boring as a spreadsheet of latitude, longitude, and show them sort of the habitat and the patterns of these endangered species, I just felt like, well, that's a GIS project that I can be proud of. So that was in my early days at PG&E.
Just a follow up on that, Elizabeth. Do you think you still have that map, and can you share that with me so I could share it with the students?
Wow. I don't still have that map, but if there's interest in so looking at work products that we do at PG&E, I have some interesting ones that I can share. All you guys have to do is next time there's or even anytime there's a power outage, just go to pge.com and you can see some PGE GIS in action. And that shows where people's power is out, and possibly even your own power being out. But if there's we can chat afterwards, Joseph, and see if there's something
Awesome.
more exciting. Yeah.
Next, I'd like to ask Derek if he could share an exciting project he's worked on as a mechanical engineer.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, it's not as exciting as condors, I can tell you that. But I worked for Stanford Linear Accelerator. It's basically a particle accelerator that shoots electrons down, it's a couple mile path. I think it's around 3 miles. And we had a job in one of the laser rooms. It's where they do the experiment. So they bombard, don't get me wrong, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not exactly sure what they do, but they bombard electrons and they hit certain things. They look at scatter graphs and And anyway, we had a project in one of these rooms to hook up some nitrogen, and it was a pretty secure facility. There was a lot of hoops to get through to be able to go in there and do surveys and, you know, find out exactly what their problem was. There's a lot of site surveys. That was really exciting. It was a really small project. I wish I had more work out there. Another one, I like particle accelerators. They're very interesting. We also put a particle accelerator. It's called a cyclotron. So they actually spin, I think they were alpha particles, but they spin them around and they shoot them at, you know, certain liquids, and they irradiate the liquids. And so what the hospital did is they take these medications and they inject them in your blood, and these chemicals, they saturate certain tissues, and that allows people to take pictures of where these saturation points are. So I got to put a cyclotron in the bottom of a hospital. It had 6-foot concrete walls to prevent radiation from leaking out. All the pipes coming into that room had to do an offset to prevent radiation from escaping. That was very exciting. I loved that. Actually, both of those projects. So those are two of my probably the best ones. I've also worked on a flu vaccine manufacturing facility, which was very interesting to see how that works. They bring in chicken eggs and they inoculate them with a live flu virus, and that they incubate them, and you know, so this flu virus grows inside of these eggs. And then they take these eggs and they actually harvest them and take out all the virus out of them, and they clarify it and they process it, and they make it into the nose sprays that you and I get for, you know, vaccines. So I actually got to work on one of those facilities, and it was a really complex building. There's a lot of precautions with the HVAC systems to prevent the virus from getting out, and it was very interesting. So those are probably my 3 top projects that I can think of.
Those are very interesting, and I'd like to know more about it later, but for now,
I'm available anytime. All you do is have to shoot me an email. I'll share that with you at the end of this.
oh god, okay, yeah, that does sound really cool. Particle accelerators, moving stuff at the speed of
It
light.
is.
Yeah,
Very much is.
and for all of those projects and job sites you guys have done, I believe some of the stuff that I've learned before, which, you know, go into every kind of almost all the aspects of, you know, working a job, are work readiness skills that don't you don't really study exactly for to get a job, but you can use for every other job in the market, like communication, leadership, time management in organization, and problem solving. These, you could call them soft skills. And I'd like to ask Ken, what type of work readiness skills what are the types of work readiness skills that you use every day in your line of work?
Sure. So you actually touched on a couple of them. Communication is key. And sometimes when we think about communication, we think of it being one way or maybe even two-way. But what we like to really use, or I like to try and use as much as possible, is really three-way communication, is conveying something, letting someone respond, and then reiterating how they responded to ensure that I understand it and getting everything that they intended from it. Another one, you know, besides communication is, you know, some of the other soft skills are definitely organizational skills, being able to engage and speak with different audiences. That's one thing I naturally had a talent for, and I've also worked on and grown in my over time, both as a student and then becoming a professional, is that, you know, being able to take something really technical and explain it in, as they call it, layman's terms, or to someone who's not very technical, or vice versa, someone who's kind of have more of a creative mind, and then explain that in a technical fashion to an audience. So being able to, you know, explain different things to different audiences and knowing who they are, having that three-way communication are all things. But they're probably the biggest one for me overall, and part of it is personality, but a lot of it is also indicative of not only the times we live in, but just work and just relationships, period, whether it's work, personal, or other, is listening. So there's, just taking the time and opportunity to listen to people or listen to a circumstance or a problem or whatnot, and listen completely and openly. So not listening to take action, which is a natural response for engineers. We're problem solvers. We want to understand or see what the problem is, and then we want to jump in with a solution. But listen for what the problem is, but also listen for what and how people are stating the problem. Because sometimes what you'll find is the core of the problem may not be technical. The core of the problem may be social, meaning how people are engaging and sharing information across or not, or there may be gaps there, where the technical solution resolves, the immediate issue, but the lingering issue or core of the problem is more on how people communicate. So those are, for me, a couple of those soft skills or those skills: listening, communication, engagement with others. And I would just recommend, the earlier you can put yourself in a position and opportunities to leverage and grow those skills, as well as just become more informative in those different ways and pathways that people communicate, technical, non-technical, and everything in between, the better suited you are, not only for work, but, your personal life and overall.
Thank you, Ken, for that insight on work readiness skills and how it really just transfers to a lot of a lot of parts of our lives. And I'd like to ask the same question for Elizabeth, and if there's any other insights you could go deeper into or new ones you can bring up.
I think Ken covered it really, really well. And I can just observe that, Louis, you're a fantastic communicator. You're actually modeling some really good communication skills yourself in facilitating this. So I don't think that it's something that you have to, wait for college or think like, oh, it's something far off in the future. It's you're doing a fantastic job at running this. I want to give you props for that. But yeah, it's sort of getting, if you're afraid of public speaking, or if it's something, I can say that I started out, think of me as a book reader and an English major. I never thought I would be, giving speeches at work or giving presentations or anything like that. And I ended up getting over that so completely that I teach now. So at night I teach GIS at San Francisco City College. So if any of you want to take a City College class on GIS, I'm the instructor for that. And I remember the first day I was going to teach, I was sick to my stomach. I was so nervous. And then I got over it. I did it over and over and over and over again, and realized that I didn't die every time I was afraid of public speaking. So I think there's skills around communication and leadership and all of that. And part of it is just jumping in and doing it and learning that your worst fears are usually not going to come true. And watch Louis as a model of excellent communication.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, I'm still learning too. In fact, I owe a lot of this communication skills to Mr. Rico and him making me talk in front of a lot of people before. Yeah, so a lot of it, I guess you could say, goes back to just getting, to that first step, and maybe you get some people to help you along the way. Victor, would you like to continue on?
Yeah. Thank you guys for that information on just helpful advice for life, But I would like to open up the floor to my fellow students for any questions.
Okay, Sarah has one. Sarah V, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Yes. I wanted to ask them, what was the most important thing you gained or learned in high school that has helped you now?
Oh, huh.
And I guess that goes to
Wow.
everyone.
Yeah. So this is Ken. I'll jump in and let others definitely answer. The most important thing I learned in high school. Wow. There's so many lessons there. But I think one important lesson, and it was kind of reiterated here, is that it's okay not to know everything, and it's important to
It
make
just
mistakes and learn.
happens.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you are. You're okay.
Okay. So yeah, it's okay to make mistakes and learn. I mean, that's actually how you get better is by trying things and not being afraid to, not get it perfect or right the first time. As a matter of fact, that's where you get all the growth is in the journey. So whether it was class or sports or doing community service or working with family or friends, there's a lot of different times and lessons where, yeah, I didn't do it right the first time. Heck, I didn't do it right the 16th time in some cases, but I learned each time, and that learning and going down the journey, helped shape how I had to do things going in college and work, and then in a career as well. And one thing, hopefully, will always be a fact is life is a continual learning experience. So you should be learning all the way, all the time and along the path. So others.
I'll give it a shot. Um, I would say the most important thing I learned in high school, I mean, there are a lot of things. I totally agree with what Ken just said. But I think for me, it was by the end of high school, I had learned to have a lot more confidence in myself and to not worry so much about, you know, um, modeling my behavior on what my friends expected of me or, things like that. Earlier in high school, I was kind of just going along with the program that my friends were doing, just kind of goofing around and just going along with that. And by the time I got to senior year, I realized this is not working out. I need to be my own person. So I kind of broke away from that scene and buckled down and started to study. Like I said, I, I wasn't a great student in high school until the last year when I realized I needed to, actually put some work into it so I could graduate. And that's when I realized, like, wait a minute, I need to be my own person and, uh, take into account my own self-interests as far as my future. It's not important to always be going along with what my friends are doing just because they like it or they want me to. So that sense of kind of independence and individualism really served me late in high school. I think it served me very well. And I'm really glad that I learned that lesson because, it enabled me, beyond high school to kind of take my own path, find my own route. And it was a long and winding route to get to where I had something of a future that I feel secure now. But yeah, just you need to kind of for me, it was the necessity of developing some self-confidence and just being able to be my own person by the time I got out of high school.
Okay, well, I think I'll go next. I mean, are we just going to go down the line here? And
That'll be fun. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So I, like Paul, didn't do very well in high school, and I just wish I would have tried harder in high school. I just didn't try hard. And, well, some things I did try hard in, like math. I've always excelled in math. I was very good at math, and that's one thing I did learn and I got really well is math, and it's just directly relevant today. So I wish I would have tried harder, though. It delayed me in my career. So if I would have worked a little bit harder, I think it would have put me a little bit further where I am today. I feel I am behind a lot of the people that my age where I'm working right now. I think it held me up a little bit. People my same age are, already in management, and I'm lagging about 3 to 4 years behind. So I would just try as hard as you can. Life's short, and you got to make the most of it. And that's one thing I learned. Is just try your hardest. It's very important. But
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, I
thank
learned
you.
more, but that's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. But I'd like to, is there any other questions the student would like to ask?
All right. Let me see. I think Sarah has one.
Okay. How did you handle failure in high school, or how did you handle failure in general?
Is it Elizabeth? You want to start this one since you didn't have a chance to answer the last one?
Um, I don't think there's a great answer to that. Failure always, there's lots of nice statements out there like failure is a way that you grow and learn, and you learn from your mistakes. But it always making a mistake always throws me off, and so I think I compensate for that by trying to be very prepared for everything and trying not to fail. But I definitely have experiences, say for example, in teaching GIS at night, I will make a mistake in front of all the students, and I will say something and they'll say, well, the way I read it, it was different. I go, oh, I was wrong about that. I'm sorry. And I think it's repeatedly living through that over and over again and realizing that it feels bad at the time, but life goes on. And a lot of the failures that are mistakes that I think are so important and so scary to me, I think it's often something that nobody even noticed, right? So in my teaching, maybe I'll make a mistake, but and I feel terrible about it, but it's often more terrible for me than for everyone around me. So I think taking failure in stride and going and kind of getting out of your own head is something that I've done over time. I make mistakes all the time. It doesn't get better.
So I'm gonna piggyback off of what Elizabeth said really briefly. So yeah, there's a lot of different terms and for lack of a better word, cliches about failure and all that. But the truth of the matter is, that, again, you don't know everything. So and we're human and we're fallible. So you're going to make mistakes and all of that. And you're going to have those, kind of maybe negative emotions sometimes in the moment. But the key is that the opportunity to learn, grow, and improve from it is there. And that's, again, how you get better, how you learn more, how you learn not to do something. Or so when the next time something in that space or direction comes up, you have the approach that works for you. Because sometimes failure isn't that it's wrong, it just might not be the way to approach it for the situation. So you bank that for later and another circumstance comes up and you use that approach for it and it works well. So yeah, in the moment, it does, it can have some of those negative emotions and feelings, sit with them for a minute, but don't let them stress you or overwhelm you. Know that that's part of the learning process. It's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be hard and a little wrenching to make you strive for more. And then that you'll learn and grow from it and be better because of it. So others, or maybe the next question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Kind of going through the same exact thing right now. Just a little nervous, but I think Juan Pablo has a question to ask.
Yes, I have a question. So the qualities that you learned while being an engineer, how can I use those to expand into other professions, to other careers, basically?
That's a good
Paul or
question.
Derek, you guys can go.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. I'm trying to think of a response there. Can you repeat that again?
The qualities that you learned as an engineer,
Hmm.
how can I use those qualities to try and expand into other professions?
Yeah, so problem solving skills. I mean, it's applicable to life, you know. I think being an engineer, I've really developed my problem solving skills and trying to look at things different ways, looking things outside the box and finding solutions. So I think it's a life skill, you know, that I've learned directly from that. So that's one thing. I don't know if anybody else can provide any more insight, but yeah, I'd say that'd be the top thing. Absolutely.
I'll give it a shot. It's kind of a hard question, actually.
It is.
But I will say I'm not an engineer per se. I'm a GIS analyst. A lot of my work these days is kind of in support of engineering work. And I've been doing GIS for about 25 years, like I said previously. However, I've done it in a variety of different fields. The skills that are pertinent to my job can be applied to all different types of businesses or sectors of the economy. Like I worked for vineyards for a long time. I worked for banks for a while. Now I'm working for environmental services. In addition to the technical skills with GIS, there are a lot of those soft skills that we talked about earlier that are really important to moving from one type of job to another. Skills like communication, problem solving. If you have a technical background and a science background, and you have all that knowledge, there are all kinds of jobs where you can bring that and apply it. But I think it might be more difficult to do that if you don't have a lot of those soft skills like communication and problem solving. So I'd say that if you want to move from one type of job to a different type of job, especially if they're just significantly different, then those soft skills, it's really important to have a really solid foundation of that in order to make the case for, why would you want to hire me to do this when I've been doing this other thing for 10 years? And you can draw upon, those communication skills and kind of you can build an argument, to get a potential employer to see it, see that, oh yeah, maybe you are a good fit for this job, even though your previous experience might not be exactly what we're after. Yeah, for me, I think that's pretty key. It's just how I found a really solid foundation of a lot of those soft skills that can help to carry you from one phase of your, work life to another.
Well, thank you, Paul, and I just want to thank you all again, guys. And just before we do end, I'd like to have a few closing questions, or one closing question actually, something that I that each engineer here would like to answer. And the question is, what is one practical piece of advice that you would give to a student thinking of becoming an engineer or your job, not necessarily an engineer?
I can go here. I kind of touched on it previously, but I've always been a fan of working hard, and it wasn't until college I started working hard. So I think that is one skill that when I'm looking at somebody new coming in to our company, I like to see people taking initiative and pushing through problems and staying positive and contributing to helping the problem at hand. You know, when I was, you know, slow, when I was interning, I would go around and empty garbage cans, and, you know, I would do anything I could to stay busy. And those are the things I notice. So I think just working hard and doing the best you can, and life is short. It is really short. It goes by in a blink. So you just have to make the most of it, and be proud of what you do, you know. And working hard is something you can always be proud of. So that's one skill I think is very important.
Thank you, Derek.
I would say really quickly, you know, follow what you love to do. If it's not a fit, you'll know it. You won't want to get up in the morning. But if you love what you do, no matter what it is, that's follow your instincts about what you really, really love to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
I totally agree with that.
And for me, the last one would be stay curious. So, you know, staying curious and always being willing to learn or see different perspectives for things is something that'll serve you, you know, your entire life. Just having that curiosity and willingness to learn or see different things in a way other than you're familiar with.
Thank you, Ken. And Paul, do you have any?
Yeah, well, I agree with everything I agree with all the above. Yeah, I mean, work hard. Like Derek said, I've always loved working hard. Before I had any kind of professional position, I worked in an ice cream shop for 4 years. I made pizzas. You know, I had all kinds of odd jobs. Some of them were not that great, but, you know, just work hard and working hard and perseverance, you know. Engineering is a difficult field. There are a lot of, you know, challenging subjects in engineering with all the math and the science involved. So, you know, going back to the failure thing, I'd say perseverance is pretty key for engineers. Like, as I said previously, I'm not an engineer myself. I work with engineers. In school, I had, you know, a couple of my roommates were engineering students, so I watched them, and they worked so hard. They were so focused all the time. And, you know, that was 20 plus years ago, and now I see them and they're really successful because they've carried that kind of really hard work ethic and the focus with them all the way. So, you know, and they persevered over, you know, when they ran into difficulties. You know, I had one roommate who failed a calculus class 3 different times. He had to take it 4 times before he finally passed. So perseverance, especially with the difficult things, is really key. Whether it's in your classes or, you know, trying to find the right job, good fit for you, just stick to it.
Well, I'd just like to speak for everyone here, my fellow students as well, that we thank you guys a lot for coming here to share your experience and share your thoughts with us as students, you know, barely learning and soon to be the next workforce of the decade. And just like to thank you guys all. And can us, the students, please unmute ourselves and just give our esteemed guest a big round of applause. If anyone would like to join me. Yeah, thank you all for coming here. It's been a pleasure of all of us.
Thank you. It was really fun.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It was great.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a chance to, you know, for public speaking. I find it very difficult, so this is helping me out, and I want to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. This is great.
Yeah,
And hang in there with Zoom. It won't be forever. You'll be back soon.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Back to in person.
Yeah, when we're back in person, I do hope to invite you again so that you could meet all of my students.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
Yeah, we look forward to it.
Yeah.
So, Rico, do we